My name is Karl. How do you do? I thought, being the Memories Tour, I thought I'd share some of my old memories with you with a slideshow. May we have the first slide, please? Oh yeah, there's me. Hi. 1997. A member of Nerf Herder took that when I was guitar teching. Things have changed a bit. I still have the Astro Boy towel somewhere too. Next slide, please. In the early days, we advertised our own shows. There's at Raji's. That's probably our third show ever. I can't remember exactly. And the Pygmy Love Circus was another band we were opening for. Hardly anybody remembers them. Rivers drew the family and the flag. Next slide. There's one I designed. Coconut Teaser. It's now some kind of a high-end restaurant. Why? It should have stayed. Next slide, please. At the English Acid, another long-gone club. I used a ad for a stun gun or something for and changed it to a Weezer narration. I think she basically had to get the tacker off of her so she could get to the show. Next slide, please. Another one in English Acid using Mary C. of C's Candies as the mascot, and a slogan off of a wafer. Loacker wafers? Anyway, moving along. Next slide. Club Dump, now known as the Viper Room. Back then, it was Club Dump. And it was a dump, but that's a great show right there. Wax was great. Joyride from Orange County was great. Black Market Flowers, the other band who had a song called Michael and Carly, before Weezer did, because Michael and Carly also were their best buds. And Crash Course, I don't know what happened to them. Anyway, moving on to the next slide. Here we are in the studio working on Pinkerton. Actually, Pat's studying Spike Jonze's hat there. He was fascinated with it. Next slide. There, same story. That's in the Van Nuys Sound City Studios. Next slide, please. There's Rivers reading a very bad comic book that nobody should ever read. Note the thrilled expression on his face. Next slide, please. These are some Spike Jonze photos from the recording sessions. If you have Pinkerton Deluxe, you may be familiar with a couple of these. Next slide, please. More from Sound City Studios. Spike Jonze is such a good photographer. Next slide. More Spike Jonze. These are the coolest ones. He used the super wide angle deal. Next slide, please. Oh, can we go back a slide? Is that possible? You see, I think you can see me leaving the room in that shot, in that door in the middle. I'm like, get me out of here. Next slide, please. I love that photo. I don't know why. I love the big box in the middle. Next slide. There's Pat at work on the drums. Next slide. And there's Rivers going, man, what are we doing? Next slide, please. Here we are in Pasadena in 1996 with Michael and Carly, our great fan club girls, dearly departed. This was a fan club gathering they held, and we left Sound City Studios and came over to their special party. It was so cool. Next slide, please. There's Brian holding a Blue Album cake that one of the fan clubbers made. It was so nice. Next slide, please. Oh, it's so tiny. But that was the little welcome to fan clubbers that Michael and Carly set up. Little card, I guess, that you... Next slide. There it is. You filled that out. You put on your photo. You sent in your photo, and you got back a laminated card from Michael and Carly. Next slide, please. Ooh. There it is. the long lost, we thought we lost this image, the Rebel Weezer Alliance website from 95, 96, 97. That was the homepage right there. Next slide. Here's Michael and Carly backstage with us in Madison, Wisconsin in 1997. Next slide, please. And here's an amazing framed picture of them that a girl in Seattle made for us after they passed away. It's a great thing. It really moves me. Next slide, please. Here's the infamous Rolling Stone. Look down at the bottom there. What's that say? Worst album of the year, number 1, Bush or whatever. Number 2, Pinkerton. What? Let's move on to the next slide. At least we weren't Bush. Okay. Here's some set lists from back in the day. Classic set lists. They got strange as we went along. Next slide. Things started to get misspelled. Things started to change. Next slide. I think, in Da Garage. Undone Za Sweater Song. Surf Wax. Next slide, please. Garage Land? I thought that was a Clash song. New One Else? Pink Kringle. Jet U. Jojo Jonas. Next slide, please. There's our Pinkerton tour book that we had all our schedule in. Next slide. There's it's tiny. We went to Australia back then, and sorry Australia, we haven't been back in so long. That's a great poster from the show there, with Custard opening. What happened to Custard? Next slide. Same tour over in Australia with Custard and the Foes. What happened? Next slide. And here's the Writing 96 schedule. You see us in between Terror Vision and Ice-T. Woo! Next slide, please. All right, here we are with No Doubt, and in the middle there is Sophie Mueller, who directed the Say It Ain't So video. She came out, she was going to direct their video too. We're at Zion National Park in Utah on the middle of that tour. We went on the river with inner tubes with No Doubt. That was pretty cool. Next slide. Here's Rivers in Thailand, looking very concerned. There's some armed guards back there. It was a little disconcerting. Next slide. And here's Rivers looking much happier because he's on his pet dinosaur back in Zion National Park. He didn't like the bus, he had to ride his dinosaur. Next slide, please. And here is a shot from that tour. And No Doubt had all kinds of trees and balls over the stage, but those weren't ours, those are their trees and balls. We were just rocking out. Next slide. There's Brian in Japan going, oh my God, these people are crazy. Next slide. Here's some of the very, very early merchandise. That's a Weezer shirt from '92. They only made about 25 of those, and those are some special caps we made just for the crew in '95. Next slide. There's the Pinkerton mobile that you can only get at a record store for display. Next slide. Oh, Elena Jensen, who's in the audience tonight. She designed that shirt, and we sold it, and it was great. That's the Pinkerton Cats shirt. It's the best JPEG I find. Sorry about that. Next slide. She also designed that one. So give it up for Elena. She's awesome. Next slide, please. And finally, there I was in Japan in '97. And my rig for tuning the guitars is right behind this door. So they put a sign, please open gently and carefully, as there is a large guitar tech behind it. All right, well those are some of my memories, and in a moment you'll have Weezer. Thank you.